um,
That was lovely. I really enjoyed that conversation. I wish I'd gotten to see it. It sounds like a beautiful show. And yeah, so the stuff I'm talking about is not nearly as interesting as that. It's all boring technical design stuff. But, you know, that's what I like to do. It's interesting in a lot of ways. It's not as fascinating as that, but there's interesting points that you made in that conversation that I think relate to it. And I mean, the show Don't Tell, I think, was a very good point that I think sound design in particular relates to in a lot of ways, because you can be overly prescriptive in your sonic language and world building and stuff, which, you know, it depends what you're doing. But yeah, it was interesting. I enjoyed that. But anyway, so I guess the point of me being here today is to just go through, I guess, principles of sound design and a bit about how to do it and all that kind of thing. And yeah, I think it's probably good to note that there's going to be some of you that are going to be more naturally interested in this, and some of you who are not necessarily so much. I think it's good for you all to get a bit of a background about it, but I suspect, you know, someone like Emma, who I've met a couple of times but don't know, but I mean, she directs and designs her shows, which is fantastic. And, you know, that's, I know in some of your assessments and exercises, that's essentially what you might be doing. But I think how much you incorporate these things is really up to you. Yeah, so I guess the first thing to probably note is, I don't know, did you all have a look and see the things to download, QLab links, all that kind of stuff? It's weird not being able to hear back. But if you can, it's probably good to note that if you're on a Mac, you can use QLab, and it's good. QLab is now, Pro QLab is all completely free for the moment. Cool. So you can use all the features of it, which is nice. So if you have a Mac and you haven't downloaded that, go into your Moodle and download it now, because we're going to have a look at that later on. And there's also some audio files in there, so we can play around with designing some stuff. If you are on a Windows machine, you can't use QLab, which is unfortunate. But again, in the Moodle, there are links to some Windows-based alternatives for ShowQ systems, which you can have a look at. They do the same thing. Unfortunately, I'm on Mac, so I can't really tell you much about the Windows-based ones, but from what I understand, they work basically the same way. So anyway, if you haven't got yourself some kind of, which alternative do you recommend? I'm sorry, I would love to recommend something, but I've never used anything except QLab, because QLab is so good. And I've never seen a theatre that has anything other than QLab. So I literally have, other than doing a little bit of research for the purposes of this, yeah, I have nothing I can offer, I'm sorry, except that all the forums get really frustrated about them, because QLab is such a user-friendly, logical program that just works really easily. And from what I understand, I think ShowQ systems, we downloaded one, so Isadora, that's good. Yeah, well, perhaps you guys can help each other. I wish I literally don't have a Windows machine. I wish I had one so I could just install it and have a go. But YouTube is your friend. All this stuff with QLab as well. Like if you go onto YouTube and type whatever question you want, you will find the answer. You may have to wade through a very long rambling babble about something to get to it, but if you fast forward in, then they'll tell you how to do it. Yeah, but yeah, so if you have something, I mean, obviously everyone has got a computer, which is kind of cool because you couldn't be here otherwise. It's a bit different from our previous lectures. But so, and I mean, perhaps within the group, some of the Windows-based people could talk to each other if someone finds something out. I don't know if that's possible, or one works better than the other. I know ShowQ Systems is not free, but they do have a month trial going on it. And from what I could see on the forums, that seemed to be the one. Oh, okay. Isadora is really similar. Okay, cool. Why don't we settle on Isadora for now and have a go, and then perhaps if people want to talk to each other, that might be good. So I guess, oh, you can't save on it without buying it. Not quite sure what to do about that. I know from what I mean, like I said, because I don't have a Windows system, I can't try these things out. But the ShowQ Systems free trial did seem to be like it was just a straight up free trial. We'll work something out. That's the attitude. Nice. Anyway, so maybe if you haven't downloaded stuff, have a go at doing that now. So in a little bit, we can come back to that. But I guess one of the things, I'm Dan, by the way. I work with Stephen a lot over the past 4 or 5 years. And yeah, I guess what I should really do is talk about how I do things. There's no right or wrong way of doing things. And I think just talking to people and finding out what other people do is useful. But essentially, if you're going to do this, you should do it your own way and find out the way that works for you. And don't let technical things get in your way, because they can always be worked out. So I think the most thing I'd like to encourage you the most, like if you think about what you want to do and then work out how to do it, that's far more useful way of going about things than trying to figure out how to do things and then do what you want to do from that, if that makes any sense. But anyway, so I guess there's also a couple of documents in there, because in a sort of more boring sort of sense, in the practical things about sound design, has, multiple roles within a show, and they're all relatively obvious, I guess. But I thought that I would talk about how I go about approaching it. So it's great with Stephen. Stephen and I spend hours chatting about stuff and dreaming, which is very fun. We don't necessarily get to do that with every director. So I just thought I'd go through generally how I would approach starting a show. Is that sort of useful to talk about? I don't know. Yep. All right. Okay. So, I mean, it usually starts with a conversation with the director about what it is and what we're doing. And then you get sent a script, if a script exists. And so what I would do is just cold read that script, which is usually before you've actually answered the question whether you're going to do it or not. And then if everything seems like a good fit, then you go through and oh, nice, thanks, Stacey. So having sort of accepted it, I'll then go in and do what I call an extraction. I think you can see in your Moodle there that there's an example of an extraction I did a while ago for a show called Ear to the Edge of Time, which I just thought was an interesting one to open it up because I did it quite detailed. Some of my extractions are less neat than this, but it's pretty straightforward. It's just literally going through the script, picking out every element, and making notes on them, finding where they are, and yeah, to me, it gives you a good sense of what you can just pull from the script itself, to give you a broad perspective of how sound is going to work within the show, and the overall kind of arc of the show and the rhythm, and where things need to be pushed or pulled, where time can be taken. And I thought this one was interesting because it was really quite. Was that a question, Stacey?
Daniel, do you want me to put it on the screen while you talk through it?
Okay. Well, I can put it on the screen here if you like. I guess I won't put it over your face. What happens if I do that? Desktop 1. Is that working?
Yeah.
Yeah, nice. So yeah, it's just a little chart about things, the page, the scene, location, cast. This when I've just said audio in this, sometimes I'll do that differently, but that's just literally the scripted audio from it. And then this had the other good thing about QLab is it does visual stuff, which I thought was good to bring up. I thought that something could actually be really interesting in isolated performance, because if you've got access to a TV or any other kind of screen or something, that could make for a very interesting element to incorporate if that was appropriate for anything. But it's very fun, and again, it's just very easy to do in QLab. So the thing that's interesting about this is it kind of went between a very naturalistic environment and then a very abstracted thing with all these poems. And it was cool because, and so I'm just getting ahead of myself here, but what you would, having done that, anyway, I'll come back to that. Having done that, you need to then start thinking, or I start thinking about the physical space that you're in, which means sort of having conversations with set designers, directors, and understanding your venue, what's available to you in your venue, what you need to do in terms of, if there's sound effects that are scripted that need to happen from a particular location. Once you've got a kind of document that's telling you what everything that you need in terms of the script, then you can match that against your space and start thinking about how you're going to set up your space sonically. And then you get to the more interesting part where you need to come up with your kind of concepts for the piece itself, which will generally, again, be conversations with directors and so forth. And, you know, it varies dramatically from show to show. But, you know, having done that, you need to actually set up your space. So again, another example, this is a show I did with Stephen, which is fun, just so this is, you know, a speaker plan. In this case, this is from Merciless Gods that Stephen and I did done 3 times now. But this is the most recent one, which was in the Fairfax. So I thought it was good to bring up because it's sonically one of the best venues I've ever been in, if not the best. It's incredible. They have all these speakers in the roof throughout, which are inbuilt in the 1980s. I think 1984. They put in 24 beautiful speakers, which are, you know, part of the architecture of the building, sitting in the roof. Which is, yeah, an example of a very nice theatre. In Monash theatres, you know, well, you'll get back into those theatres eventually, I'm sure. But the Monash theatres are also very well equipped. But what you're probably going to find is coming out of uni and going into shows, you're not necessarily going to be working in such ideal conditions. Oh, my internet connection is not stable. I'm going to stop sharing just in case that helps. Did that help? Maybe, not sure.
Yeah.
Yeah, so the you have those documents there in your Moodle if you want to look at them. But yeah, the purpose of that is, you know, working in a venue like that is brilliant because you have people that fix everything. The most likely scenario when you come out of uni is you're going to be in a quite the opposite sort of environment where you're working with very basic equipment with limited support from people, and you'll just kind of have to make things work with what you can, which I actually find really fun because you've got to start problem solving and figuring out why things don't work, which is interesting. But anyway, so the purposes of that is physical parameters of the space that you're going to be in are going to affect how you approach a design, which is fairly local anyway. But and then, you know, there's different types of spaces. You might not be in theatres, you might be outdoors, you might be doing all sorts of things, and all these things kind of go through your head. So this is all just boring stuff. But anyway, then in the past I have questions about where you actually get content from. So I personally like to make as much of the content myself as I can. Often you'll get songs scripted in works. They might be scripted. Again, working with Stephen is fantastic because he has a very passionate approach to sound, I guess, and is very helpful in looking at songs and giving you examples of how you know, songs that have the right sort of feeling for the show. But there is a fun thing. Again, while you're at university, go nuts because you can use whatever you want and everything is fine because it's in an education context. When you get outside of uni, you're going to have to deal with something called APRA, which you may or may not have heard of, is actually a really good company. They're Australian Performing Rights Association. They look after the royalties for songwriters, and we're actually very privileged in this country that they exist, because they do kind of they look after the rights of musicians, whereas many countries don't do that. If you're working in England, there are no laws associated with this, and as a result, there's a lot of musicians whose work is used without kind of credit or compensation, which I don't think is right. But at the same time, you're probably going to find that APRA will give you a headache. So sometimes you get permission from for a song very easily. Sometimes you have a huge fight about it. There's a show that, again, Stephen and I did, called Abigail's Party, which is scripted almost like a musical, and each song in there, I think it uses 13 songs, which is a lot for a show. Each one is specifically scripted, and almost all of them are hard to get. So we had an enormous battle, which happened over 8 months, trying to put a show on legally, and cost an absolute mountain of money. So while you're in uni, you can use anything, which is great. So do. Also, you can find, I don't know if you've come across them before, but there's a heap of sound effects libraries all around the place. So generally what I do if I'm looking for a sound effect I don't have, I just literally type in what it is, put SFX at the end of it, and things will start coming up, and that will direct you to different libraries. Again, within Monash, I believe that you do have access to some of the professional libraries through the film school. I'm not quite sure where we got to on that. I think we were looking it up last year, but you may be able to find stuff that way if you get in touch with the film department. But yeah, personally, I find it fun to just build my own stuff. And yeah, that kind of thing. And then the other really fun part of it is using live content, which, it doesn't happen that much in theatre, I guess, but it is really fun. Singing is the sort of the most common one and the easiest one to do with that. But yeah, it's a good thing that you can incorporate if you want. I don't know if, some of you, I'm sure, are musicians, and some of you might have access to recording stuff. I mean, it's great. You've all got computers, so you've probably all got some access to recording stuff. So yeah, all these kind of things are tools that you can use, which will be fun to do. I'm not sure. I think Stacey might have disappeared, but from what I understand, what you're going to be doing in your assessment is sort of presenting. Oh, hi, Stacey, you are there. Yeah. So I'm not sure. From what I understand, there's no requirement to use any design elements in the performance tasks. It's not a requirement, but it's something that people can do if they want. Is that correct? Yeah.
So for this first interest and edit assessment, excuse me, we've not built in a design requirement for that piece. Although Stephen and Donna nod or shake, that's certainly something people could consider working with some sound. But go ahead. Yes.
Because I'm thinking about how to do this myself. how could I use sound at home? Like if I was making a video of myself, and I wanted to have sound elements, what are my options? Is it literally just like I'll have to have a stereo next to me and play a CD while I do a monologue? Is that what I'm doing? I don't know.
That is absolutely one option. You could do that, which could be cool. But you have heaps of different options, really.
You just run through them.
Sure. So, I mean, if it's something that you wanted to incorporate live,
mm-hmm.
then essentially you would have to have some kind of playback system going on, which could be in the room around you. I mean, so if you're using your inbuilt microphone on your computer, then having some sort of speaker system around you, if that sound is in the room, then it will go into the microphone. Yes. Yes, thank you, Stephen.
Yeah.
So if you've got sound in the space, like that's
the
most simplified version of it. I'm kind of lucky. I've got an external sound card and speakers. So, like in the context of this, it's relatively easy to run QLab, for example, on your computer, have the output of your QLab going to speakers, but the input of your Zoom or whatever it is that you're doing coming through your you can, if like later on, if you've got a specific question about this, of what you're actually trying to do and the gear that you're using, let me know, and I'm very happy to help you, because you look terrified right now. But it's not necessarily complicated. Like if you have some kind of speaker system, if you're using purely your internal speakers from your computer, the same thing would work. Quality wise, it's probably going to get a little bit a lot tinny, really, if it's coming through your computer speakers, out of your computer speakers into your computer microphone and back in, then you're going to lose a lot of the fun of it. It would still definitely work though. So then you do have other options in terms of, like, if you have the ability to use other microphones, then it starts getting more fun. And yeah, I was playing around with it the other day. I made the tutorial where I didn't actually have any sound coming into the space, but I was recording the audio from QLab into one channel of a recording program, and then had a microphone in the room which was recording a second channel of just me talking over the top, and so that came up kind of okay. With screen recording, that put a lot of strain on the computer as well. So what ended up happening is that the things were glitching, and yeah, it was annoying, but it did work. And then I guess your other option, going into this stuff, like you could be pre-recording something,
okay,
which gives you, like, if you're doing a monologue and you want sound behind it,
okay.
if you're not, if it doesn't have to be live, then that starts giving you a lot more a lot of other options as well. So if you were to record yourself doing a monologue in silence, or just record a monologue without any background, and then work
Sorry.
No, that's great.
There you go. There's some sound.
I know.
Diegetic sound.
Absolutely. Yeah. So if you were to record yourself doing your monologue,
Yeah.
just laughing at your face, Stacey. You would then have that essentially as a video file, which you could then put into some form of video editing software, and then start dropping your the sound elements that you want into that.
Okay.
Start becoming essentially, effectively exactly the same as the film sound design, where you're not working in real time, which is it's a lot of fun. Like I do live theatre and film stuff, and I like them both for very different reasons. I like the uncertainty of time in theatre, because each performance is going to be a different thing, and that creates really interesting things with sound, and it's where QLab is fantastic, because you have that ability to build flexibility into how things work in terms of time. But then when I'm doing film, I love the specificity of that, because you can work in such a detailed manner, because your visual is a fixed element, which is not changing. So you can then, your design can become enormously accurate, because you're not sort of limited to the fact that it will be different every time. It's going to be exactly the same every time. So that enables you to create really detailed things that work really well. But yeah, it's funny because I've started thinking about the visual aspect of this, because in terms of this online platform, because it is really a platform that we're not really used to using as a performance space, and you are kind of limited to the place where you specifically are and what that looks like. I mean, you can physically design your space around it, but it's never going to move that much, I guess. But having things like there's envisaging televisions and stuff, and how you could have in this kind of context, it's really quite a close angle shot. You might be moving around and doing things, but if you had some form of screen behind you, you would then be able to start playing with altering the physical environment that you're in digitally, which would really be quite cool.
A student has just done that. They had like a San Francisco photo behind.
Yeah, I saw that. That was great.
People are putting up like mully grubs or dogs or things behind them. So
that's really embarrassing.
funny.
It's great.
You can use it.
Yeah, absolutely.
Stacey has something.
Oh, I just wanted to ask Dan. You've got some of those kind of go-to maybe sound files that you've put up for people to download? Sorry. That's great. I just wondered if not here, how we might do that, how we might use something like that in conjunction with Donna's question. So she's got a kind of monologue, let's say.
Yep.
Just so we can get a feel for what
Yeah,
our
sure.
options are. Yeah.
Absolutely. So I don't know. What did I put in here? Yeah. So, yeah, it's sort of I've been waffling on. But yeah, I guess they're not so much go-to sound files. They're just things that I plonked into a session for the sake of the exercise. I don't know that I was in a particularly good mood at the time, but you know what we could do. Just the example. This is so. Tell me when I'm sounding right. So, is that coming through in the background now with me talking over? You hearing anything there?
Not really.
Not really. Well, I started doing this.
Ah, yes.
Yeah. So it's interesting to know how to balance this, because for me that's really quite loud in the room. But can you hear my voice?
Yeah.
Over that?
Yeah.
Yeah. So that's just an example of a something or other going on, and then with talking over the top of it, and then
What does it say? Oh, sorry.
Well,
right.
I think we can hear it, and then when you talk, it switches to your voice. Does that sound like what's happening? And so we don't hear it.
It's a thing that you can turn off.
Yeah.
You just have to, like, it's a setting that you have to turn off at the top.
Yeah, right. So there's an inbuilt compression thing somewhere. Whereabouts is that? Yeah.
I think it's around with like turn on original sound. I had to do this for my online singing lessons. I just know.
Oh, nice. That's awesome. Reactions, record, invite. I might play around with that. But anyway, that's good to know that it exists. Mute audio.
Oh, it's okay. If you go down to where it says mute and then you click the arrow, you have to go into audio settings and then advanced audio settings.
Okay. Yeah, cool. Oh, there it is. Audio settings. Nice one. Thank you. Speaker. Automatically adjust microphone volume. Would that be it? Oh no. Maybe that's good. Advanced. Yes. Okay, I can't actually find that one, but it might be automatically adjust microphone settings.
It's so I can talk. I know, like, for people who want to know, it's audio settings, and then it should bring up a settings tab. Then you go to advanced, and then there's the suppress background noise, and then you can disable them there.
Oh, okay, so you just disable those ones.
Yeah, and then you should be able to hear the background sound as well.
Yeah, cool.
Hope that helps.
Yes, very much so. Thank you. So now...
That's better.
That's better?
Yeah.
Yeah. Cool. So that's just literally playing QLab through a set of external speakers and talking over the top. It's a little bit weird because it's kind of loud in here, like in comparison to my voice. Is that like a good level of background to speech? Yeah, that's about right. Okay, yeah, so when it kicks in a bit more, it's kind of all right. Cool. So I guess because it's 11 o'clock already now, but
We went over slightly, so
Yeah, that's all right. I'm just wondering, because I was going to get into physically building a QLab workspace,
you
which,
do that in 10 minutes.
sorry,
Do that in 10 minutes.
I can, yeah, 10 minutes, sure, no problem. All right, so, and I mean, this does exist within the, there's a tutorial there, which is why these audio files exist. But yeah, okay, quickly. So for those of you who have QLab, is that a useful thing to do you think? Yes, no? Maybe? Yes? I got one nod. Yes. All right, good. Okay. All right. So I'll go back to sharing the screen. So for those of you who don't have QLab, if you successfully downloaded the Isadora or whichever one you want to try, maybe have a go, because it will be approximately the same thing. Like I said, I wish I could help you more, but for those of you that do have Macs, if you just go and open up QLab and open the create a workspace. Hang on, I'll start. But yeah, there's just a thing, new workspace, that's it. If you click on a new workspace, you'll get a window like this. So yeah, I can't see the chat box anymore. So maybe Stephen or Stacey or someone, if something pops up, there's people asking questions, could you let me know?
Yep, Dan, I'll do that.
Awesome, thank you, Stacey. So anyway, for those of you with QLab, you should have a window like this. If you have Isadora, you will probably have something relatively similar. I wish I knew what that looked like, but I'm sorry, I can't help you with that. And then in your Moodle, there's that file called QLab Week 3 Exercise Audio, which is just the audio files that I used in the tutorial that's up there in the Moodle as well. So essentially what I really wanted to do is, see if people have tried out the tutorial and if they had problems with it, and then just go through the very basic sort of things of how QLab works. So with this first one, in its most basic sense, without doing anything, you can just click on whatever audio file you want, drag it anywhere in here, drop it, and you will get that happening. So now all you need to do is hit the space bar and it will play, that's fundamentally the basics of QLab, which is cool. So it's very, very easy. So you just drop it in, let it go on your way. So for me personally, you can, and again, I've said this in the tutorial, like you can use this program so many different ways, and it's great if you find your own way of working. So for the sake of this, I'm just going to show you what I usually do, and then encourage you to just find your own way, because it's much more fun if you do that. But up here, we've got a View tab and a Toolbox. So if you click on that toolbox, it'll open up your tools on the side. And again, like approaching it from a principle of wanting to do something, figuring out how to do that, I find far more useful than going through and trying to figure out what all these things are one by one. It's far more fun and useful to just do it. So for the sake of this, we've got a thing that plays, and I can stop that by hitting escape. But obviously you don't want to do that in a show. So you put in a fade. So if I drop a fade Same principle, just grab the fade, drag it across. In there you will get this little thing, and then you just need to target the fade. So you drag the thing that you want to fade over the top of that fade cue. Click on that, you'll see there's a red X here, which means something's wrong. So you haven't done anything to it yet. So in this case, we want to fade this song out. So you go over to your audio levels. These are all your volumes. If you just go straight into it, you'll probably only have 1 and 2. You should be using your built-in output from QLab. So that's your left speaker and your right speaker, and this is your master. So the fade can either turn it up, turn it down, do all that kind of stuff. So in this case, we want to fade it out and make it stop when we get to the end. So now our red X has disappeared, and you can just hit this will start to play, hit this, and it will stop. And that is fundamentally what QLab is all about. Like 90% of QLab is fading things. You can fade all kinds of stuff. You can fade videos and you know, effects levels and all this kind of thing. And then in our last couple of minutes, like the other thing I'd like to show you is groups, because generally, you know, what it will do, if you've just got things like this, you hit the spacebar once, hit the spacebar again, that's all well and good. But if you want to do more than one thing at once, then you need a group. So if you drop a group in, grab your fade and stop, drag that inside your group. Now, with this group, groups will function in different ways. So it has a mode down here, and they call the elements of the group's children, which is kind of strange, but anyway, that's all right. It's in keeping with our first part of today's conversation. But for me personally, I like to start all children simultaneously. So that means whatever you put inside the group will happen immediately. So I think I sort of did a two-part thing where I started to make it rain, but I just for the sake of this, so I want to turn this into a crossfade where we have this fading out and a little bit of atmosphere fading in. 2 minutes left. So what I'm going to do with this, so this cue is fading this one out. So now we want to fade this one in. So click on it. To fade it in, it needs to start from 0. I mean, not from 0, from no sound coming in. So same concept, you pull a fade into it. It's just happening very slowly. There it is. Grab it, drag it over the top, target the fade. Turn the volume up to where you want it to be. And then just because I did it the other day, I'll slow this down. So yeah, this parameter over here, the action list, will tell you how long it takes things to happen. So in this case, this song is going to fade out over 8 seconds, and this atmosphere is going to fade in over 4. So then we get this playing away, and then fades out, and we get that happening. So that's probably all we've really got time to do, but that is kind of the basics of QLab. Like, find sounds that you want to use, things that you want to do, put them in, you can fade them in, you can make them go, you know, happen instantly or over very quick fades. You can move them around. You know, if you fade from one side to the other, you'll get like a panning effect going from speaker to speaker. And then I guess the other useful thing that could be cool in this context, although you can just do it in Zoom, but you might not be able to control it. Not sure with the backgrounds. But video files function exactly the same way. So if you have a video file that you want to put in, you can do exactly the same context. Just grab it, drop it in here. It's probably worth noting in that you know, you need to set where it will go to, but perhaps we can run over that out of context if people are using video or sound in their assessments and they want specific help with it, then I can answer questions that you have. Yeah, and I think that's probably where I'm going to be most useful, because the generalization of it is interesting, but a lot of this stuff does become problem solving, which I find a lot of fun. Stop sharing this now. So coming to me with specifics about trying to create something may be more useful than me going through it. And anyway, we're out of time. Hi, Stacey.
Hi. Just a couple of things. So Dan, you've put up a tutorial for QLab, I think, on the Moodle page. So that would be under our week 1 tab if people want to have a look if they haven't already. Dan, what's the best way for people to get in touch with you?
I guess from email or something, or okay. That's fine, I think.
I'll send through your email address if that's okay.
Yeah, go for it. No problem at all.
And folks, please do contact Dan if you're working on sound for this assessment, and we will have a design element in the final assessment, the performance composition 1. So folks should be thinking forward to how they might incorporate sound and lighting design and design in general for these at-home online performances as we move through. So yeah. Thank you, Dan. Thanks so much.
No worries.
Yeah.
Excellent. Thank you, everyone. And yeah, please send me questions if you have them. I'm very happy to answer them.
Great. Thanks. So now what we'll do is folks can take a little bit of a break. Thanks for hanging out so that Dan could get his full time. What we'll do is we will leave this Zoom meeting, and then you will use your invites for your particular seminars to join the other meetings. And Stephen and Donna, just a reminder, because I forgot, not that you would, to hit the recording button when you start. We got maybe a minute in, and then I thought, oh shoot. I can set it up so it manually starts, but then it's just
okay.
Drinking coffee. Okay.
Oh yeah, I see. There's a clear button saying record. I was like, where is that?
That's right. And I will, I'll work on that YouTube, I'll work on uploading to YouTube and then send the link out to everybody. So yeah, anything else before we sign off?
Thanks, everyone.
Just a question as far as presenting our final works or final work in progress showings. How do we do that?
Yeah, good. Yeah. Well, we're going to have to decide a way that you're going to film those and upload them. You'll do that through the Moodle assessment tab. I think it should work now. We've set it up so that you can upload under assessment 1, upload your proposal for this week, upload your work in progress video for feedback in next week, upload the finished piece for week 6, and upload your reflection. You should be able to click and upload files under each of those, and then we'll give you feedback. But if you run into trouble, don't worry, just email it to us or give us a link. We'll find it. We'll give you feedback. So Moodle should work, but if it doesn't for some reason, don't get stymied by that. Yeah?
Sweet.
Does that help?
So, yeah, so the particular format you want video formats of just anywhere us doing the performance, yeah?
Not just anywhere.
Well, like, you know, within the scheme of things.
I'm within the scheme of things, but I still, in that, I think there are interesting choices to be made.
Okay, cool.
Yeah.
And that doesn't mean, so you pre-record and prepare, but there's also this context. So if some of you choose to do a performance live in Zoom, like we're talking right now, just let us know so then we can schedule that performance time live so we can just watch it together.
Sweet, yeah.
The kind of two options you've got. It's like a pre-record or a live stream via Zoom.
Yeah.
Cool.
And then what you do in that live stream sense is you'd record your piece and then you can upload it so that we can look at it again and give you some feedback there, right? But there are heaps of choices you can make, not just me and my paintings or Trotsky behind you. Not Trotsky, I want it to be Trotsky.
I know, so do I.
You know, that are really interesting. So yeah, I mean, there's lots of options there, but you're right, you're gonna have to make some decisions about that.
Yeah.
Cool. You can talk in your seminars about that as well. Yeah. Thanks everyone for showing up. Please let us hear from you, even if it's like a I'm still alive or stop posting pictures of Murphy or whatever, or show us what you've got for dinner, just so we know you're breathing out there. It'd be really good. Yeah. All right. Bye everybody.
Bye.
Bye. Thank you.